Greetings and welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we're going to be looking at the Lifesteal build that I've been teasing for a while now. I am a big fan of Lifesteal builds. I'm a big vampire guy, so I always feel like lifestealing is a cool thing to do. So when I first saw the Greatsword and I saw the lifestealing options, I was already like pretty sure what kind of build I was going to run. It was always going to be the Greatsword and the hammer with the rune glass gems that give you the extra life stealing. And that's what we've done. It's a really cool build for PvE and PvP. You can solo basically anything on a build like this in PvE because you just get so much healing from all your attacks that you can kill bosses, you can kill large groups of mobs. You can basically solo even Ennead you can solo. I haven't done it yet. And I probably won't, but I've seen people do it. Like if you guys know Crotha, he's been soloing Ennead like on his build. So that definitely works. He has a more PvP oriented spec for that though. Has like corruption resistance and stuff like that. I don't do that. I'm not like a big PvE guy, but uh, life stealing is amazing. So let's just look at it. Let's just start with the attributes here. Easy split, 200 strength, 150 dexterity, and 150 constitution. The reason we're going for a split like that instead of like 300 strength is I want the 150 dex passive here. I want my cheaper dodge rolls. This is a very dodgy build. We're medium armor, so we already get a reduction in dodge cost. So this on top of that, even cheaper dodge rolls. Our dodges only cost 30 stamina. And with the built-in stamina sustain that the Greatsword has, you can just dodge for days. It's so easy to do that. So that's why I went for that. You can, of course, play this build with 300 strength if you want to. That opens up the grid on light and heavy attacks, which are better than the heavy attack grid that's built into the Greatsword. For some reason, like weapon specific grid options are kind of weird. They come in very late. So if you swing a heavy attack right now, the grid only comes in the second half of the attack. Whereas if you have 300 strength, it would instantly, as soon as you start the heavy attack, you would have grid. So that one is better. And if you like, if the grid more than the dodging, you can go with 300 strength. For me personally, I like how dodgy this is. This is pretty trolly. You can like dodge 4 times in a row and then basically turn around, do a light attack into a steadfast strike, and you get all your stamina back, and then you can dodge roll 4 more times. So this build's pretty good in avoiding damage and like dodging out of sticky situations. And we have a lot of shirking fortification on this build, so the dodging is very beneficial. But yeah, outside of that, 10% damage to your melee physical attacks, which is important, of course. 5% damage to melee slashing and strike damage. That's both the weapons that we have. We have the slash damage on the greatsword and the strike damage on the hammer, so that buffs that. The 25% stamina damage from melee weapons, light attacks. That's actually pretty good, because both of the weapons do a lot of stamina damage already, and getting the extra stamina on top of that means that you can break people's block a lot faster. And especially when you swing like heavy attacks, you're just really you're wrecking people's ability to block. On the dex side of things, we get the increased critical chance, which is super nice to have. We get the extra thrust damage, which we also have on the steadfast strike. That is thrust damage instead of slash damage. And then, of course, we talked about this already, the extra stamina cost reduction on the dodges here. When it comes to health, all health consumables 20% stronger. You definitely want that. Increase the max health by 10% of your physical armor. That helps in medium armor. It's not like the biggest deal, but this one is the one that you definitely want. Minus 10% to critical damage taken in PvP, of course. Super nice to have that. Really cuts down on the sharp burst damage that some people have. So yeah, that's the stats. Let's look at the gear. So we're using I'm using a crafted greatsword from the Night Vale event. Keen, Trench and Recovery, Life Stealing. Um, they come in Keen. Optimally, you would want a different third perk. I think Trench and Recovery, Life Stealing, you definitely want to keep those. But if you can get your hands on anything else, really, like anything that you want, Keen doesn't do too terribly much on a build like this. So anything else would help, whatever it might be, enchanted or uh, keenly fortified, keenly empowered, like whatever, anything that you want can be your third perk here. Of course, the Night Vale Greatswords, they all come in Keen, so this is always going to be on them. And I'm actually really lucky that I got this craft. And it happened because I asked. I was just like, Jesus, give me a life stealing sword with trench and recovery and life stealing. And then I crafted it. And what can I say? It just happened. It just crafted it, you know? It was exactly the sword that I wanted. So that's pretty nice. And we're using a Leeching Gambit. These are the new Rune Glass gems. Gives us 12% damage when the stamina is not full because we're dodging a lot, right? So I'm doing dodge hit, maybe multiple dodges and then a hit. So I like the Gambit a lot because you have a lot of control over when your stamina is not full. You can always dodge before you hit someone. So it gives you the full control over whenever this thing is giving you the extra damage and when it's not giving you the extra damage. And then, of course, you get the 3% extra damage as health. That's the extra life stealing. Super nice to have. Same thing, basically. On the Warhammer, we got the Leeching Gambit, we got Trench and Recovery, we got life stealing. And this is Lost Bane. Doesn't really matter. Anything else on the third perk that you would like to have would do a lot for you. Um, any perk, be it like a hammer perk or whatever, go with whatever you like. I got this one here because the life stealing and the trench recovery was pretty nice, and I was actually looking for a lost hammer because that was meant to be for PvP, for PvE, and I ended up just using it for PvP because honestly, life stealing, trench recovery, that's a really good hammer. When it comes to gear, we're basically using PvP gear. This is all rusher stuff, and we're all using shirking fortification on everything. I I've been using shirking heals. I got to be honest, shirking heals just ain't it. It's just not pulling its own weight. It has a cooldown. Like the heals are not great, and it has a cooldown on top of not having great heals. So, let's forget about shirking heals. Shirking fortification is where it's at. Got 5 shirking fortification for almost 20% fortify buff when we dodge an attack, and this is just super nice. It makes me so tanky sometimes. It's crazy. Like I'm surprised how long I can stay alive with this. So I think that's definitely what you want to go for. You should also make sure you get as much resilient as possible. We have 4 resilient on this one. On this one, we're missing the resilient. It's not a big deal if you're missing one, but you should really make sure you have as many as possible. Refreshing on this one, sturdy energy on this one. It's not bad. When blocking a hit, which on the greatsword you're blocking anyway, like if you're in onslaught, if you're in defiant stance and you're swinging heavy attacks, even on the light attacks, um this would come into play. So when you're blocking a hit, you gain extra stamina regen. That's really nice to have. Makes a lot of sense on the greatsword. um refreshing here, and vigor here, and this one has invigorated. It's not super important, but also it's not bad, because a lot of people have a lot of bleed and poison, and of course burn. You have fire mages, you have musket people, bow people, and of course with the great sword now, there's a lot of bleeds that are just built into the weapon. So having that's actually not a bad idea. And when it comes to this, the weaken, disease, and exhaust is also not bad. And the rend, of course, is also, hammer and great sword applies a lot of that stuff. So it doesn't hurt, but you feel free to go for whatever you want. Shirking fortification and resilient is important though. We got the leeching gems on everything here. We got leeching physical ward on a couple of them, and we got leeching fire ward on a couple of them, which brings us up to 13.5% physical damage. That's all physical damage, slash, strike, and thrust. And then 10% fire damage for those pesky fire mages that just pester you with that stupid flamethrower skill that I just hate. It's fun when I use it. It's not fun when other people use it. So yeah, having the extra fire damage resistance actually really helps because they can really hurt when you're 1vxing, and you've been there. You've all seen it. You're 1vxing, one guy comes up and starts flamethrowing you from the sidelines. It's horrible. You don't want that. 10% extra damage mitigation to that. Super nice to have. Jewelry. Let's look at the special jewelry that we have. So we got the Doom's Chance earring here. It's strength, refreshing toast, and regenerating. That's a super nice one to have. We're using the smooth bone ring, of course, leeching, hardy, keen awareness. You can also go for the Legate's ring, which is I think keen awareness, leeching, and slash damage. That's also not bad, gives you a little bit extra damage, but then you lose the hardy. I value the hardy a lot, so I'm not okay giving that up. So yeah, for me personally, smooth bone ring is the way to go. Leeching, hardy, keen awareness, super nice, and then of course the strength. And then this one here, I bought this for fairly cheap on the market, and I think this is a really, really, really good amulet for a build like this. We got strength, we got divine, which is going to increase your lifesteal, of course, but you know, it's not going to give you 10% extra lifesteal. It's going to give you 10% of your lifesteal extra. So with all the lifesteal combined here and the divine on top of that, we're breaking the 20% lifesteal. So that means, because we're like, this is 5% here, this is 5% here, that's 10%. Then 3% from the leeching gambit, that's 13%. And then another 5% here from the armor gems. So it's 18.4. And then we get like another almost 10% on top of that here. That's 1.8. I think they're probably rounding up to 1.9. So we're breaking the 20% lifesteal on this build, which is super nice to have. On top of that, we got health for extra health, makes us more tanky. And then fortified, which is such a good one. Fortify you apply lasts 30% longer. Well, as I already mentioned, we have full shirking fortification. So when I'm dodging, I get almost 20% fortify for 6 seconds. And this is gonna increase that to like, I think 8 or 9 seconds. So you have a really long fortify buff that you can just apply by dodging an attack. Super nice to have. Super important for a build like this that goes in and it's kind of like a frontline bruiser, where you take a lot of damage. Having that fortify up for such a long time is super, super valuable. Of course, this might be hard to get. You'll see. You can go for something else, but I think health and divine is quite important to have. Choose for the third perk, whatever you want. There's other things you can go for. I was using this one for a long time. Gives you the extra stamina recovery and the shirking and power, which is not bad either. But I think this one here, which I got for fairly cheap, like 8K or something, is pretty much the best in slot for a build like this. So yeah, that's the jewelry. When it comes to food, we're using the carrot cake, but you can use whatever you want to use as long as you get to the required stats that you have for this build. Infused regen, infused health, and then some hardy meals. And we're using the Cunning Hard-Rune of Grasping Vines as our ultimate. Why are we using this? Because you get Enfeebling Vines, which inflicts the weaken on your targets, 20% less damage for 8 seconds. That's a super long debuff. 20% weaken, super strong. That's 20% less damage you're taking. Plus, you get 20% lifesteal on everybody that's rooted. So you can use this offensively, you can use this defensively. If people are chasing you, you can just pop the vines, root them in place, and get the hell out of there. Or you can go offensive, you can root them, and then smack them and get 20% more lifesteal, which would bring us up to 40% lifesteal on this build. Just Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And just think about how much damage you can turn into health. You have 40% lifesteal with this, and then you smack someone with a trench and recovery for 41% more. I mean, you're basically almost turning your entire heavy attack damage into health at that point. Um Little disclaimer, I'm not sure if this is actually the case. I haven't been able to like verify that, but people have been saying um they shadow nerf trench and recovery, and you can only get one heal out of it no matter how many targets you hit with the heavy attack. It kind of looks like that right now. We've noticed that there's like less healing coming out of this. They never mentioned that though, as far as I know. So there might be a shadow nerf to trench and recovery where it only procs once no matter how many targets you hit, which is kind of fucked up, to be honest. Don't like that at all. But if that's the case, it's not a big deal because you heal for so much. You can easily heal for like 2 to 2.5K per heavy attack. So that's actually it's really nice. That's really nice. So keep that in mind. Let's look at the weapons. So on the Greatsword, as you can see, we're going with a full Defiance tree. I'm not comfortable using Onslaught on a build like this. We're going to make a new build after I'm done with this one here. And this one's probably going to focus mostly on Onslaught, if not exclusively. But for a build like this, I think the Defiance tree is the way to go because you just have so much control. You have the tankiness, you have the lifesteal. It's a very methodical playstyle, actually. So let's go over it. So we're using Stat Fast Strike here, which is a nice little stabby stab. You can hit people that are running away and kind of pulls them back. It's almost like a harpoon. You just like stick it in their ribs and then you just pull it back out. Deals a decent amount of damage. It's not crazy, but it's pretty nice. And you restore 20 stamina on each hit, which is amazing for stamina sustain. If your stamina is empty and you hit people with this, you're getting a lot of stamina back. We're using Steadfast Recovery, of course. The first strike heals you for 50% weapon damage. Just more lifesteal. And in Defiant Stance, you inflict 2 stacks of bleeding for 6 seconds, which is super nice. A Greatsword has a lot of bleeding built into it, and we actually have all the bleed effects on this build. So it's amazing. That's some extra damage that really helps you. Just keep people. I killed a lot of people with just bleeding, when they just start panicking and they realize they're about to die and they run away from you, but they have like the full bleed stacks on them and they just bleed out while they're running away. Super funny. I like that. And then we have the Stat Fast Refresh. The second strike hits, the cooldown's reduced. The cooldown of other Greatsword abilities is reduced by 20%. So that helps you with, just keeping up your skills, being able to cast them a little bit more. The second one we're using is Calamity Counter. This is an amazing skill. You block for 2 seconds while you're reducing the block stamina by 90%. So you've seen it, right? And if you don't block any attacks and this thing pops, you can just activate it and pop it, and it explodes for 100% weapon damage. So you can use this even offensively, just to do extra damage. Do a light attack or a heavy attack into a Calamity Counter if you know the target's not going to attack you because they're like on the defense right now. You can pop this immediately for 100% weapon damage, add some extra damage to it. But of course, if you're being approached by a lot of people and you just want to throw out a block, you can do this. You can block for 2 seconds and basically unlimited attacks in these 2 seconds. So even if people hit you like 20 times in these 2 seconds, right, you would block everything. Of course, it takes some stamina damage, so you don't want to use this when you're like being attacked by really like, let's say you're pulling like a large group of mobs and they're all like hitting you at the same time. You got to be careful. You don't want to overdo it. The way I do it is I usually pop it quite fast. I usually only like, block like 1 or 2 hits and then I pop it. So the way I do it, it's usually I go into a heavy attack, and then at the end of the heavy attack, I go straight into the Calamity Counter. You got to be careful because Calamity Counter is a cancel skill. it will cancel whatever you're doing right now. So if you throw a heavy attack and you're not done swinging and you just cast this, you might just cancel your heavy completely. So the way you want to do this is you want to do it like this. Go in there and pop it, right? That's how I do it. I go in there, I try to time it so that I can block one attack when the enemy's coming in, just trying to like really like get the timing right. When I see that they're going offensive, I throw the heavy attack, go into the calamity, block this one attack, and pop it real quick to stagger them and do damage. So that's basically the way I use that. But you can of course block longer if you really need it for like a defensive play. If you get a lot of people attacking you, or you see an attack coming and you just pop this thing, because you can pop this at any time. Like I said, you could be in the middle of an attack, just pop this thing. It's gonna cancel. It's gonna give you grit. It's gonna keep you safe. And yeah, it's a great skill. It feels good because it's like very snappy, and I like that a lot. Then the second one, jagged counter. Um, if you counter an attack with this and you pop it, it inflicts bleeding, which is super nice. It's just one of the bleeding stacks. You get the bleeding stacks here, you get the bleeding stacks here, and yeah, like just throwing your combos out there, putting bleeding stacks on targets. Really nice gameplay. And then this one is super nice as well. The critical calamity. Your crit chance is increased by 25%. In onslaught stance, which we're not going to be, you get another 25% hit chance, and you're going to heal for 20% of the damage. So this is actually a really strong heal when you're being attacked by a lot of people. And you pop this thing, everybody hits you, and then you pop it, you knock everybody back, you do damage to everybody, get 20% of its damage done, maximum 5 hits. So you basically get 100% if you hit 5 people, you get 100% of the damage you're doing back as health. It's pretty decent heal. The next one we're using is Roaring Rupture. This one's amazing. It's a nice little tanking tool. It's a nice little AoE. For some reason, it doesn't hit like super hard, but I finished a lot of people off with this. Like when they're trying to get away and you slam the ground and it kind of finishes them off. It's pretty nice. So you have a 4-meter radius. You do 120 weapon damage, 120% weapon damage, which is not bad. But then you gain also like 8% fortify for each enemy hit, up to 3 stacks, which is 24%, right? So that's going to make you tanky. You want to make sure you have this up when shit hits the fan. Make sure you go for the Roaring Rupture. You hit everybody for the damage. You get your fortify, and yeah, it's super nice to have that. We're taking the Purifying Roar, cleanse 2 debuffs after using Roaring Rupture. So you have a debuff on you have bleeds on you, or stuff like that. You just pop this thing and you get rid of them. And then we're going Intimidating Roar. Shockwave applies 10% weaken for 10 seconds. That's a super nice little buff there, or debuff. Basically 10% less damage for you for 10 seconds. Very nice. And after a successful hit, you become uninterruptible for 5 seconds, which is also really nice. Not being able to get staggered and stunned, fucking amazing. You could take this. You can have both. In case you don't know this, you can have both passives. I didn't take them because I needed more points for other passives, but you can go for this one too. In Defiant Stance, the Shockwave pushes foes outward, and in Onslaught Stance, it pulls them in. So since we're only in a Defiant Stance, whenever you would use that, you would push people away from you, which is a nice defensive move. And you can also use that to push people off a wall or out of a door or something like that. Nice little place there. So take that if you want. We're not taking it. But when it comes to the passes, Perfect Vigilance. If you're hit while full health, reduce the damage taken by 20% and then gain. So someone hits you, right? You're full health, someone hits you. That hit, the first hit while you're full health, 20% less damage. After that, 20% fortify for 3 seconds. So you see there's a lot of fortify on this build. You just get it passively here. Very nice. This one, Unflinching Blade, super nice. Heavy techs have grit. So having grit on a heavy tech is nice, but I've already told you that the built-in grits that the weapons have, like the hammer, the greatsword, and the great axe, they're a little weird because the grit comes in very, very late. You can still be interrupted in the early stages of the heavy attack, which is I don't think it should be like that, but it is what it is, and you got to keep that in mind. But having the grit is super nice, and you inflict bleeding again. So there's the third bleed that we have on the build. Very nice to have that. I think that's important. I picked up arrow deflection, and that's, by the way, why I don't have adaptive rupture, because I used to have that. And after, not being able to deal with archers and musketeers, I was like, you know what? I'm going arrow deflection. So that enables you to block ranged attacks. Um, Increases the stamina damage from blocking, though, which is, you got to be careful. This can fuck you over in certain situations. But I think this is still beneficial for these situations where someone's shooting you with a bow or a musket, and you don't have any line of sight that you can do here. You're just an open field. There's nothing you can do. Um, you can still block. That's a valuable thing to have. So we're going with that. The next one is the Faultless Defender. Reduce the stamina damage by 50% when blocking attacks just after raising your guard or with guard point. So that kind of takes away the increased block damage again, So we're getting extra block stamina damage here, but this one kind of takes it away again. And then you inflict a 5% rend for 10 seconds against melee attackers. So when they hit you, when you're blocking and they hit you, they get a 5% rend, which is nice because you're going to be blocking a lot because you're in a defiant stance. And defiant stance, of course, guard point block incoming attacks while charging heavy attacks. So if your defiant stance is active, you throw a heavy attack, you're going to be blocking, right? So that is going to inflict a rend on people, going to increase your damage towards them. So super nice little setup here. And this one's super important. Undying Defiance. You heal for 5% of the damage from all attacks. And after blocking an attack, you have 3 seconds of 15%. So instead of the 5%, you're going to heal for 15% damage dealt instead, which is, of course, very, very important on this build, getting that extra lifesteal. So make sure you block, make sure you throw the heavy attacks to activate the block and get the extra healing on that. Super, super nice. Over here on the Onslaught tree, we have a couple passes that we need and a couple passives that we don't need, but we have to take them so we can actually get to the passives that we want. The one that we want is Heavy Blade. Charge heavy attacks have 15% armor penetration. You definitely want that. That's free damage on your heavy attacks. And you're going to be throwing a lot of heavy attacks anyway. This one here, after gaining Onslaught stance, this doesn't come into play because we never gain Onslaught stance. We're not going into Onslaught stance on this build. So this one doesn't do anything. We have to take it, though, so we can go down here, take the critical comeback. One of the best passives that this weapon has. Become energized by landing a critical hit and regain 5 stamina and 5% base health per second for 5 seconds. So that's 25 stamina and 25% base health per second for 5 seconds. This is super nice. On top of your lifesteal, on top of all your other heals that you have, you get that and you get better stamina recovery as well. Super, super nice to have. This one is also not super important. Critical hit chance increased by 10% when attacking foes with an active debuff. You apply debuffs. It definitely helps. I don't care too much about this, but we have to take it because we need this. This is one of the most important passives in the entire weapon tree. Step and strike. I think if anything is going to get nerfed about this, it's probably this passive here. Because after dodging, you gain a 10% empower. You just get an empower, a free empower for dodging. Just like that. You dodge, empower. You don't have to dodge an attack, in case you don't know that. This is not if you dodge an attack. This is if you dodge. Just any dodge. You open up with the dodge, got your 10% empower. You can go in now. And it counts for the next 3 hits within 10 seconds. So you hit him 3 times, you dodge again. You hit him 3 times, you always keep your empower up. But the most important part is attacks empowered by this effect restore 10 stamina on hit. 10 stamina on hit. This is per target, by the way. You hit a lot of targets with a light attack, you get 10 stamina for every target hit. And as I told you, Steadfast Strike is a really nice sustain tool. Well, guess what? They work together. So if your stamina is empty and you use a Steadfast Strike, you're going to get 20 stamina on each hit, which is 40 stamina on the Steadfast Strike, plus 10 stamina on each hit with the Step and Strike. That's 60 stamina you get back just for casting this one skill. It's insane. It's insane. If your stamina's empty, you do this thing and your stamina's back. That's what it is. It's just insane. So, yeah, that's the Greatsword. Let's take a quick look at the hammer. We used to run a full Crowd Crusher setup. I gave up on Path of Destiny though because it's too clunky to use. So we're only going 2 skills here in Crowd Crusher and then 1 over here in Juggernaut. Let's look at them. Wrecking Ball. Strike the ground with a Warhammer, dealing 130% weapon damage, knocking down your target. Super nice, quick little hammer skill here. Hits decently hard, knocks down the target, hits multiple targets too. The AoE area is not super huge, unfortunately, on this one. So you gotta make sure you aim it right. You go for like a tight clump if you want to hit multiple targets. But you gain grit, which is super nice to have. Grit is very important. The next one here, on a successful hit, you gain Fortify, granting 20% damage resistance for 7 seconds. As you know, we have an increase, a 30% Fortify increase. So this is gonna turn into like over 10 seconds of Fortify. So we have a lot of Fortify, and I think we should, like, if we're just actively fighting, we should be at Fortify cap basically all the time, making us extra tanky, even though we're in medium armor. So I really like this. It makes a lot of sense. Great skill. Fortify is super important to have. And this one just expands the range to 1.5 meters, as you can see. Very small radius, so you got to make sure you really hit that thing. But nice to have. Next one we're doing is Shockwave. This is like bread and butter hammer. Slam your Warhammer into the ground, causing a 3-meter radius earthquake that deals 80% weapon damage, staggering and stunning all impacted targets. Just so nice to have. Such a great skill. The skill has grit too, which, you know, it just keeps you in the fight because you can't be interrupted while you're using them. You know, having grit. This one has grit too. So you just keep swinging hammer attacks. You can't be interrupted. Super nice to have. This one here causes a weaken 10% for 10 seconds. Super nice to have. We have a couple weaken sources from our build here, so you can stack those. And this one, Meteoric Crater, expands the shockwave to a 4-meter radius, of course, allowing you to hit more targets. Definitely want to grab that. Then we're using Clear Out. Clear Out is like the damage skill here. This one hits pretty hard, even though this one is supposed to hit harder, and this one little bit less. But this one is, I feel like, even though this is only 115%, for some reason it looks like this one it hits harder than the other ones. Not sure why that is. It doesn't make sense based on the tooltip, but it hits harder. And I also, when I use a Clear Out, I seem to get just more healing out of it because it hits harder. Like I said, I can't explain why it hits harder because it doesn't make sense. It shouldn't be, but it does hit quite hard. Power Cleaner. We're using this one here. Hitting a target with a Clear Out grants Fortify. Again, more Fortify for you. 10% for 4 seconds to all friendlies. So you're not an egotistical asshole. You're actually providing something to the group. So, you know, keep that. We're not using these here. They're not super important. This is just cooldown reduction, and this one gives you haste. If you want them, you can choose them. I don't need them. I don't think it really adds anything to this build. So yeah. When it comes to the passives, Outnumbered, definitely super important. Damage absorption by 10%. If you're surrounded by 2 or more enemies, that's definitely something you want to have. Makes you more tanky. Acceleration, you can choose whether you want this or not. I think it's good to have. Reduce Warhammer cooldowns by 7% when you're hitting light attacks against targets with an active debuff. So you want to hit someone with any of these skills here, and then you slap them with a light attack, 7% reduction. Of course, this counts per target. If you had multiple targets with your light attack, you get 7% per target. Just makes it a little bit easier. This is more for PvE purposes, when you're pulling like a big clump of mobs, so you can use your hammer skills more often and keep the big clump of mobs CC'd. So yeah, it's more for that, but it also works in PvP, of course. If you manage to hit a lot of people with your light attack, you get a lot of cooldown reduction. This one here, really nice to have. Deal 15% increased damage against targets affected by a Warhammer debuff. You have a lot of debuffs here, so this is going to apply to basically everybody. This one ties right into the Lifesteal build, the Prevailing Spirit. Heal for 35% of the damage dealt when using a Crowd Crusher ability. Super nice. Super nice. Okay, this of course only applies to these two, not to this one. But since we have so much Lifesteal, you also get health for using the Wrecking Ball. So it all works out in the end. This one, Resurgence, after 2 light attacks, the hammer, you reduce the debuff durations on the player. This one is basically not important at all, but I have to take it because I need to get down here to this passive, and otherwise I would have to invest into the clear out here. So we have to take it just so we can get the Aftershock. I think Aftershock's pretty important. Whenever a target is affected by a crowd control effect, they are slowed by 20% for 4 seconds. That just makes sure that people don't get away from you too much. And this also counts as a debuff, of course. So, ties into all the passives that give you, like cooldown reduction or something extra damage when people have a debuff on them. That's how you get a debuff on them. Like, you just slap them and they're like, hey, I got a debuff. I'm taking extra damage, and yeah, it's pretty nice. Over here on the Juggernaut tree, we're using the Epitome of Bonk. Increase armor penetration by 10% for all Warhammer basic attacks. You definitely want that. Hammer time, definitely want that. Gain and power on heavy attacks, increasing damage by 20% for 4 seconds. Super nice to have. This one, Hardened Steel, adds grit to Warhammer heavy attacks. Yeah, your heavy attacks have grit. We don't have 300 strength. You still get the grit here. And the most important part is you gain 12% damage reduction while the grit is active. So while you're swinging a heavy attack, or any of these skills, because they all have grit, and this counts towards that, of course, you're going to have 12% damage reduction, making you even more tanky. So that's super nice to have. This one, Contemption, increase heavy attack damage by 15% against targets under 30% health. That's a little execute mechanic. If you see someone low health, you swing a heavy attack at them, boom, take them out. Easy peasy. And this one, super, super important to have. Power Through Pain. Deal 35% extra damage for 1 second after taking damage. So if shit hits the fan, you have a lot of people on you, they all hit you, you start swinging the hammers, the hammer skills, the hammer heavies, you deal 35% extra damage, which of course is going to turn into 35% more lifesteal. Of course, do more damage, get more lifesteal. So super nice to have. And that's it. That's the hammer skills. And that concludes the builds, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you like it. This is a fun build to play. Like I said, PvE, PvP, it all works nicely. You get tons of lifesteal. You can just cleave people for crazy heals. The rune glass gems are not cheap. They're like the most expensive ones right now. So you either have to dish out a little bit of money to get them, or you have to grind your ass off to get them. But yeah, it's super nice to have. You should definitely have a lifesteal build like that lying around for any type of content. This is going to make it a lot easier. You don't have to rely on the healer too much in PvE, and you can just potentially get crazy good 1vx in PvP. So I hope you guys check it out. I hope you like it. Do me a favor, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, tell me that I'm beautiful, tell me that I'm funny, or tell me how your day was. I don't care. Just engagement. I'll be back with a new video soon, guys. Take it easy. Check me out on Twitch. That's the last thing I'm asking for you. Just check me out on Twitch, and I'll see you next time. Take it easy. Bye-bye.